In the early 1900s, glowing paint was considered a miracle. It was beautiful, it was modern, and it was advertised as completely safe. Factories across the United States began using a new substance called radium, a recently discovered element that glowed on its own in the dark. It didn't need electricity, it didn't need heat, it simply shined. And companies rushed to use it. One of the most popular uses was watch dials. Soldiers needed to read their watches at night, and radium paint made that possible. The numbers glowed softly in the dark, promising precision, innovation, and progress. To paint those tiny numbers, factories hired young women. They were called dial painters. Most of them were teenagers. Some were barely out of school. Many came from working-class families and were grateful for steady pay at a time when jobs for women were limited. To paint those tiny numbers, factories hired young women. They were called dial painters. Most of them were teenagers. Some were barely out of school. Many came from working-class families and were grateful for steady pay at a time when jobs for women were limited. The work was considered desirable. The factories were clean. The hours were regular. And the pay was good, much better than most jobs available to women at the time. And there was one more perk. The paint glowed. The girls were taught a technique called lip dip paint. They would dip their brush into the radium paint, shape the tip with their lips to keep it fine, then paint the numbers on the watch face, over and over again, hundreds of times a day. No one warned them. Supervisors told them the paint was harmless. Some even joked about its health benefits. Radium was marketed in toothpaste, cosmetics, and drinking water. Doctors prescribed it. Advertisements claimed it gave energy and vitality. So, the girls painted. They painted all day, every day. And as they worked, the radium dust settled on their clothes, their skin, and their hair. At night, they glowed. Some of the girls thought it was fun. They would paint their nails or teeth before going out dancing. They called it the ghostly glow. In the dark, their dresses shimmered. Their smiles glowed faintly. They had no idea they were poisoning themselves. Radium behaves like calcium inside the human body. When swallowed, it is absorbed into the bones, where it embeds itself and continues emitting radiation. Slowly, relentlessly. Years passed before anyone noticed something was wrong. The first symptoms were small: toothaches, fatigue, pain in the jaw. Then teeth began to loosen. Gums started bleeding. Some girls developed ulcers that wouldn't heal. Their jaws weakened and fractured. In some cases, pieces of bones simply fell away. Doctors called it radium jaw. The pain was constant. The damage, irreversible. As the radium continued to destroy their bones from the inside, cancers developed, spines collapsed, limbs broke under their own weight. The women were dying. And the companies knew. Internal studies had already shown radium was dangerous. Male scientists working with radium were given protective equipment, lead shields, and strict handling rules. The women painting the dials were given none of that. Instead, the companies denied responsibility. They blamed syphilis, poor hygiene, anything but radium. Doctors hired by the companies altered reports. Death certificates were changed. Lawsuits were changed. Lawsuits were delayed for years while the women grew weaker, some too sick to sit upright in court. Still, a few of them fought back. One by one, dying women testified against billion-dollar corporations. They knew they would not live to see justice, but they wanted the truth known. Eventually, the case became impossible to ignore. Public outrage grew. Newspapers covered the suffering. Independent doctors confirmed the cause. Radium was killing them. The companies were finally held accountable. The Radium Girls did not live long enough to enjoy victory, but their fight changed history. Their case led directly to new workplace safety laws. It established the legal right of workers to sue their employers for occupational illness. It forced industries to acknowledge responsibility for long-term health damage, and it ended the use of radium paint on consumer products. Today, radium dial factories are gone, but the legacy remains. not in glowing watches, but in regulations, protections, and warnings written in blood. The Radium Girls were not reckless. They were lied to. They trusted the science they were given. They trusted their employers, and they paid for it with their lives. Their story is a reminder that progress without accountability is dangerous, and that sometimes the brightest innovations cast the darkest shadows. This is not ancient history. This is the cost of believing what you're told, when profit matters more than people. And this is why the Radium Girls are never just a footnote. They are a warning.
Some stories aren't meant to shock. They're meant to be remembered. The Radium Girls weren't careless. They were misled, ignored, and sacrificed in the name of progress. Their suffering changed labor laws, workplace safety, and how companies are held accountable, even today. Thanks for watching. And remember, the past isn't distant. Its consequences are still with us. This is WTF History.